It's October, my friends, in the garden, and I'm flexing on you as Kevin Aubergine with this 70-pound giant pumpkin that I grew. But we're not gonna tell you to grow a pumpkin in October. You should have done that in our June guide. In fact, myself, Jacques, and some pretty epic guests are gonna tell you exactly what you need to be planting this October. So let's get started. So my first pick isn't an aubergine, like I am. That's just who I am as a person. But what it is something that I discovered in a delicious mash down in New Zealand on my post-college trip. I was eating a mash of carrots, turnips, and parsnips. These are an underrated root crop, I think. They're a little more challenging to grow. It's a bit of a stretch. In a warmer climate like ours, of course, you can still get them in the ground right now. They'll do really well into the fall, winter. They get sweeter just like things like carrots do when they come to maturity if it's a little bit colder. You don't want to harvest these before your first frost. They're a root crop. You can throw some frost cover on top. You can insulate them. The thing about growing a parsnip, and this variety is the one I'd probably recommend. We have a couple, but All-American is a shorter days to maturity. It's about 95 days. The thing I'd recommend is really caring for it during the germination process. It can take 10 to 25 days to germinate. So you might think, oh, I killed my parsnip, I'm such a bad gardener. What will Kevin and Jacques ever think of me? Are they gonna block me from the channel? You know, we still might, but no, it's just patience. It's just that even after 2 weeks, you still might not see a sprout, but the seed is viable. So keep an eye on them. But I think they're a very rewarding harvest. Try this recipe: turnips, parsnips, carrots, boiled and mashed, and then add as much butter as your body can handle, and you will have a very good time with this crop.
My name is Katie and I am a northern Minnesota gardener, so that puts me around zone 3, zone 4. And if you are also a northern gardener, you might be wondering, what could she possibly be planting in October? Because our first expected frost date is mid-September, so by the time you're watching this video, there's a good chance that a big portion of my garden will be done and out of here. And as much as I would love to tell you that I have some secrets for planting all these new things in October, I do not. Unless you have a greenhouse, our season is done. So I am just here to support you as another northern gardener with a short growing season. At this point, we just have to live vicariously through our southern gardening friends.
It's been a long season of scaring off crows, and actually, I even befriended one over here called Eric, who's gonna help us with today's picks. Now here in San Diego, October is the perfect time to plant a beautiful fall garden. So Eric, what's your first pick today?
It's bok choy, bro.
After a long season of watching farmers out in the field, they didn't even know I was there, I learned that bok choy is actually not that great to plant in the warmer months, and fall is perfect because this thing will take any excuse to bolt or go to flower, which means you don't even get to enjoy your harvest. Now, one of my favorite things about bok choy is that there are a lot of different varieties. Some are a little bigger, like the rosette, but then you also have the bok choy or the toi choy, which are perfect for actually filling in little small spaces. So right over here, I already have a fully planted garden, but I could still sneak in a little bok choy around the edges because this will be ready in 30 to 40 days, and it won't take up any space that will compete with my broccoli, which will then grow into full once I harvest out this delicious bok choy.
Hey, you know, October can be quite the interesting month out in North Texas because we experience something called faux fall. And so now what this means is that we'll get a nice snap of cooler weather, maybe even a little bit of purple rain, but then out of nowhere, it's 90 degrees. And hence this is the very reason why I'm going to be planting warmer weather crops. And now dig, if you will, my garden. I have an ocean of basil at a bloom. I have everything from Genovese to cinnamon, even deep opal. But one of my particular favorites is purple petra. One, because of its color. Let's face it, you guys know that I love color in the garden, but also because of its smell. And while true, our garden should be a place of function, but I am a firm believer that it should also be a place of peace as well. And what's more peaceful than the enchanting smell of hints of clove and a light licorice smell as it blows through the breeze while you're out in the garden? Thus, basil is always going to be one of my immediate go-to crops because I like to consider it like a confidence builder, especially if you're a beginner grower, because it germinates so easy. And what I love about it is the true versatility of the plant, because I mean, it can be direct sown or it can be started indoors. The choice truly is yours. But what my Texans will really know is that we can continue to grow these warmer crops up until our first frost date, which can be sometimes at the end of November or about mid-December or so.
Hi friends, this is Shani in Central Florida, and today we're going to be talking about what we can plant in the garden in October. Now, the month of October is one of the most glorious in Central Florida, and there are countless options for what to plant this month. It can be hard to choose and narrow it down. So today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite crops to grow with children, and that's radishes. Radishes are perfect for kids' gardens because they're one of the fastest to mature crops that you can grow. So even the most impatient little gardeners can definitely manage to wait it out. It's just gonna take 35 days max to have a wonderful harvest of tasty, crunchy little radishes. Radishes are a member of the Brassica or mustard family. So they are cool weather-loving crops, which means it is important to wait until October to get them sown because otherwise it's just gonna be too hot for them. Most brassicas love rich, well-drained soil. This is soil that has plenty of organic matter, broken down compost, something of high quality in the soil because they are considered heavy feeders. Radishes are a bit more rugged than something like a cabbage in the Brassica family, but the same rules apply. We do like to provide these plants rich, well-drained soil, and I like to make sure these plants don't dry out. They like consistent watering. A drip irrigation system is tremendously helpful just to make sure that the soil doesn't get parched in between watering sessions. Unlike some other brassicas, radishes are best when direct sown in the garden. I don't like to transplant radishes. I much prefer to direct sow them. So I'm going to direct sow them, and you can actually just scatter these seeds and cover them with about 1/4 inch of soil, thinning them out to about 1 inch apart. They're going to do just fine. They are a very easy to grow little crop, and you're going to make sure to get plenty of successions of radishes.
I love walking through my garden. It's such a happy place because I surround myself with happy plants like this. This is a lavender. I love this plant and this plant loves me. It's Munstead lavender. It's hardy as a perennial in zones 5 through 9. And in my zone 5B garden, it comes back every year. But this is the only lavender I have, and I want to spread the happiness throughout my garden. So this year, I'm starting lavender from seed, the Munstead lavender. The seeds benefit from cold stratification. So in October, I begin placing the seeds on a moist paper towel in my refrigerator for at least a month. They're very slow to germinate, maybe another month before I have seedlings. And then they're very slow to grow. By the time I put these new plants in my garden in spring, they'll be of a suitable size that they'll be able to survive my hot, dry summers.
You want to know another fantastic thing about the month of October? It's a phenomenal time to start your fruit trees and bushes. And one of my favorite fruit bushes to get established in the fall are going to be blueberries. But not just any blueberries. We're specifically talking about the rabbit-eye family of blueberries because they do particularly well in the South. And some of your most well-known varieties in the rabbit-eye family are going to be like, for instance, your powder blue, your tiffs, your premiers, or even your climax for that matter. They particularly do well down here because they require low chill hours, about 300 to 600, give or take. And that works well for the South. And another reason is for its overall adaptability to our varying types of soil out here. And now this particular blueberry is a climax blueberry that I acquired back in the spring. I've been holding on to it because I knew that when fall presented itself, this would be the time that I would transplant said blueberry into the soil. Because essentially with your fruit trees and your fruit bushes, you don't really want to have the plant spending a lot of its energy doing dual duty. Thus, transplanting in the fall will allow for that valuable energy to be focused on establishing roots and not fruits. And now some key notes when talking about growing blueberries for the first time. One is going to be the soil. They require a well-draining acidic soil. The more acidic, the better. We're talking 4.2 to 5.5 at best. 2, cross-pollination, specifically when we're talking about the rabbit-eye family. The more variety that you can place out there in your garden, the better your overall yield would be. So going back to those varieties mentioned before, like your Climax, your Premier, your Tiff Blue, etc., the more diversity you can have in your garden, the better your overall yields will be. So if you can, purchase in pairs. And 3, blueberries are particularly great with pancakes.
Continuing with this kids gardening theme for the month of October, I'm going to suggest that you get some peas planted. Peas are another one that kids will absolutely devour if they get to pick them themselves out of the garden. These are a sweet and crunchy treat, very easy sell for little. Now, one of my favorite ways to grow peas is actually up a TP trellis. Right now, this one is covered in Malabar spinach, which is absolutely beautiful, but it's about to cool way down. Malabar spinach isn't gonna be so necessary in my garden, and I'm gonna make room to plant up these peas right here. And this is a variety called Patio Pride. It's excellent for containers. It's going to make shorter vines, which is ideal because my teepee is kind of small, but it's going to have abundant yields, which is really what I'm looking for. I want my kids to have plenty of peas to pick. I'm going to sow my peas 1 inch deep and 2 inches apart, and I'm going to make sure to provide consistent watering because peas do not like it droughty. They don't like inconsistent water. I have a nice little drip tubing that I put right around the base of this teepee, and it does the trick perfectly. Another tip to get these to germinate faster, I'm going to soak my peas in water about 24 hours before I plant them. This is another simple garden project that is great to do with your little kids. They can absolutely handle the task of helping you pour these seeds into a glass of water and then planting them out 1 inch deep. Another foolproof, easy kids gardening crop, and there's nothing more fun in a kid's garden than a little teepee covered in peas.
These are my lettuce buckets. Fall can be a great time to grow more of your vegetable garden in containers. And I call these lettuce buckets because that's what I'll be growing in them this year. I've drilled holes in the bottom, and I'll fill these with a nice potting mix so that I can put in this blend, the Gourmet Baby Greens. The containers allow me to move these greens throughout the garden to absorb the best sun on a daily basis. And lettuce is one of those plants that can be eaten at any stage of its growth. So I can harvest these when they are indeed babies, or I can allow them to grow into bigger, happy plants, and then just peel off the outer leaves to bring in for a nighttime salad. And if the nights are too cold, I'll bring the buckets with me to stay warm and happy. And then in the morning, I'll bring them out to enjoy the sun.
With October temperatures cooling down at least a little bit, it means that there's a lot of garden projects to do. And Jacques, myself, and Paul on the team have been out actually installing a garden, which means we were sweating like crazy, which brings us to today's sponsor, Element. Element is a zero sugar electrolyte drink mix, perfect for gardeners and anyone who enjoys the outdoors. For us, pop it in a water bottle, do a day in the garden, and you are well hydrated without losing any electrolytes. On an electrolyte basis, it has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. And we use it on the road too. We're about to head out to a big project on the East Coast, and we're gonna be throwing some of this lemonade salt, which I think is Epic Gardening's favorite flavor, in our bags for that install. If you're more of a canned drinker, they have a sparkling Element in a can. I like the black cherry flavor. The lemonade salt flavor is actually a full-time flavor now. Highly recommend you try it out, and you can do so at the link below, drinklmnt.com/epic. You will get a free 8-pack of the most popular flavors that they offer with your order. That's drinklmnt.com/epic. Now, let's get back to our October picks.
Which is going to be Dazzling Blue Kale. This is going to be excellent for the month of October, specifically here in Texas, because you want to sow these seeds 10 to 12 weeks before your anticipated frost day. And now I'm going to be planting mine out in my 25-gallon grow bag because I want the soil to be able to stay moist, but I also want it to be able to have proper drainage so we're not sitting in a swampy mess of soil. And now, generally speaking, I should start to see germination within about the first 5 to 10 days. But after the plant has reached an overall height of about an inch is when I'll go through and start to thin everything out so it's not overcrowding. And now, since I'm growing my Dazzling Blue Kale, in grow bags, I'm going to make sure that I maintain a decent amount of moisture, as we know that grow bags and containers can generally dry out faster than growing directly in soil or in like a raised bed. Now, our anticipated harvest date on our Dazzling Blue Kale is going to be anywhere between about 30 to 60 days or so. So longest turnaround time, we're looking at possibly December. But I'm going to recommend that we do a little bit of succession planting with this one because of its cold hardiness. This is truly one that we probably can be growing all the way out into January.
If where you live is warm enough that you could stand out in the field all winter long, well, then you probably have a mild winter, and now is actually a great time to be reminded of a very special crop that only us privileged mild climate growers can get away with, and that is, Eric, why don't you tell them?
I think those are onions, bro.
Exactly. Now, Eric forgot to mention one little thing here, which is that if you are in a mild winter, you're probably in the South, like Southern California, Texas, or Florida, and you're going to want to choose a short or intermediate day onion. Those are the only ones that will actually form bulbs in the southern half of the United States. And otherwise, you're going to want a long day onion, but it's probably frozen where you are right now. So what is the tip when it comes to growing these at home? Well, it's actually to plant way more than you think, and let me show you what I mean. So instead of just planting 2 to 3 seeds per cell, what I do instead is I go in with like 12 at the minimum. And now the reason why this works so well is because onions don't have very tangly roots, so it's extremely easy to separate these out, and this way you're not taking up an entire seed tray to grow a few onions. Instead, I'm gonna get like 40 out of, oh, there goes Eric, 40 out of this tray alone, which I will then split and plant directly into the garden without taking up any space and without having to worry about babying multiple trays.
Bro!
That's for when Eric falls off the table.
A plant that grows very well in containers in fall and even into the winter is basil. And who doesn't love the aroma and the flavor of basil, like this, the Italian Genovese basil. Now, these seeds are quick to germinate and quick to grow, and the plants will keep growing. If you just pinch the tip of the basil, it makes for a bushier plant. You can grow in a small container like this on your windowsill. As long as it's a warm, sunny spot, the basil plants will love it. Bigger containers, as long as you have the light and the warmth, you can have basil throughout the cold months. If you harvested some tomatoes that were unripe and now they're ripening on your kitchen counter, to pair it with a nice basil keeps that feeling, that happy feeling of gardening all through the cold months.
And while the fall is a fantastic time to be planting seeds, it's also a phenomenal time to be transplanting my favorite fruit, and that's going to be strawberries. See, strawberries are a perennial aggregate fruit that like to go dormant in the winter and then pop in the spring. So that's why I always like to make sure if I'm going to replenish my strawberry supplies, I'm going to go through and plant some bare root strawberries so that I can always have a continuous supply of strawberries always on hand, because my kids love their strawberries. And now I particularly prefer growing bare root strawberries because the simplicity is in the name. It's 6 to 8 inches of bare root strawberry plants ready to go right into your soil. And transplanting them right now is ideal because this allows the plant to establish itself right before it's about to go dormant for the winter, and then in the spring pop just like a raspberry beret, you know, the kind you might get at a secondhand store. And now the varieties that I would recommend that do fairly well out here in North Texas are going to be like an Ozark Beauty, a Chandler, or even an Albion, because those are the 3 that I grow and I have the most success out of. And now if you're in warmer regions of the state, you can easily go with a Camarosa or a Sequoia as well, as they're more adaptable to the heat in the region. But now some key notes whenever considering growing strawberries. 1, remember they are a perennial crop that likes a well-draining, sandy loam soil. They don't like sitting with wet feet. 2, make sure to grow strawberries that are known and proven to do well in your environment.
One of my favorite herbs can also be challenging to grow. I love rosemary. Rosemary is such a wonderful herb to grow, but I have to treat it as an annual because the rosemary is only hardy in zones 8 and above. My winters are just too harsh. These seeds will benefit from cold stratification, and I begin that in October for a month. And after that month in my refrigerator, I'll then press these seeds lightly into my potting soil under lights. And in time, they'll germinate. It takes many weeks for that to happen. And the germination rates are often quite low. The plant grows very, very slowly. So for me to have a good harvest of the rosemary later next year, I have to get started now. So when I transplant in spring, I can put these plants into pots or into the ground, and they're already pretty well established.
This next crop is near and dear to my heart. I've had a lot of trials and tribulations with it. And in fact, both myself and my brethren really love it. And no, it isn't this eggplant though. Please take a moment to appreciate it. Moment of silence. No, the crop I'm talking about this October is garlic. Okay, we'll put the eggplant down, we'll bring the garlic out. What do you need to know about planting garlic? First thing, it is pretty much the easiest crop to grow if you set it up for success. It's a long season crop, guys, 6-ish months, which means one mistake will delete 6 months of work. Ask me how I know. I've had a couple failures throughout the season. Still got okay harvests, but not as much as I would have wanted. So what you need to know first is hard versus soft neck garlic. Good rule of thumb, colder the climate, the more you want to try a hard neck, which of course has a hard neck coming out. The warmer the climate, like ours here in San Diego Zone 10B, you want to grow a soft neck garlic. This is a soft neck variety right here. Why? They don't need as much of a cold period in the winter. What you'll need to do with hardneck garlic is plant it in the fall, just like now, or maybe even September in a colder climate. Let it vernalize, let it sit in the soil over the winter, accumulating cold hours so that it can pop up to life in the spring. When you try that with hardneck in a warm climate like ours, you just don't get cold enough in the winter. So what you have to do is throw it in the fridge, wait a couple months, plant it out. If you want an easy beginner time with garlic in our climate, you want to be planting a soft neck. Pop the cloves off, put the biggest cloves in the ground, cover it up about 3-4 inches deep, space it out about 4 to 6 inches apart, and you are good to go. The only thing I would say to watch out for, well, there are two. One would be any sort of fungal disease. Garlic rust can really kill them off. So the only thing we've found is either planting in a spot that didn't have garlic rust last season or being a little proactive with an organic spray. The other thing is you can ruin your garlic by watering it right up to harvest. You usually harvest in around June, maybe July. What you want to do is about a month before you harvest, cut your watering off. Let that plant mature, let that energy come down into the bulb, and then pull it up. Otherwise, you can rot out these papery sort of coverings, this skin, and that doesn't make well for preserved garlic. And if you want garlic, you can get it on our store at shop.epicgardening.com or botanicalinterest.com, and you can check out our full garlic guides right here. Good luck in the garden, trick or treat, and keep on growing.